Hello and welcome to another developer diary video for Imperator Rome. Now, if I manage to get through all three of the videos I have planned, all three of the dev diaries that I have planned out for today, that will bring me up to the end of the dev diaries. However, all's not lost because as I record this, it is Sunday night, or more accurately, 1:30 AM Monday morning, and Mondays is when the dev diaries come out. So there will probably be another video tomorrow, but only going over a single dev diary. Now, with that all out of the way, let us get started. So, today we'll be looking at tribes once again, this time tribal migration in particular. I did talk about this a little bit in a previous video, but let's go deeper, I guess. One thing that stands out about many of the tribal societies we represent in Imperator is that they would at times migrate very far away, settle in completely new locations and build themselves a new society elsewhere. In some cases this was a slow process where the influence of one tribal entity spread to nearby areas, but in others it was more drastic movement of people from one place to another. One such example is the creation of the Galatian states in Anatolia, new realms founded by Celts from the European mainland in central Anatolia. Other examples found in Germania and even the Pontic steppes. So we've got migration here, and as I said in the previous dev diary, basically what you do is you get your province and you click the migrate button and you end up with a little army with some light infantry, and now he's moving over to a new area to settle it. In the game, all tribal chieftains will have the ability to migrate, and all tribal states can become tribal chieftain if they reach sufficient degree of decentralization. Migration can be initiated in any city that has at least 3 pops with a base cost of 100 oratory power, reduced by negative centralization, by clicking on the migrate button in the city section of the province interface. Migrating will take up to 20 of the pops in the city into light infantry. This creates an army that can move around like any army, except it does not require military access to cross foreign lands. All types of pops can be used to create migration cohort, but once settled, always turn into tribesmen. Migrate is to let go of any old specialized roles they may have had in their original location. But I wonder if this also accounts for slaves. Is this a good way of turning slaves into pops, into tribesmen? Possibly. Even if a country loses its last city but still remains playable as long as the migration units remain, meaning you can quite literally uproot your entire society and resettle somewhere else. Interesting. So maybe if you're in an unwinnable war, you just if you've got one army left and all of your provinces are sieged, just get him to de-siege one province and get, immediately migrate it, and perhaps try and get another one, reinforce the army with your migrants. Could happen. Any army that has more migration cohorts than there are pops in its current location can settle in that location. This will turn all migration units into tribesmen of your culture and religion and settle them in this city, taking ownership of it, even if it was owned by someone else beforehand. In order to be able to settle, the location must also either be uncolonized or under your control in a war. Oh, interesting. So it doesn't actually have to be uncolonized. If you were at war with somebody, you can just settle on their land. Oh man, that's very interesting. I like that. Very much like that. Using this, tribes can quickly establish themselves in a new region, creating a new life far from where they started. Much like colonization, settling does not turn locals into your culture or religion, which means that the newly created settlement may have to deal with some unhappy pops among its locals. Right. And now we've got pillaging. Alright, lovely. An army containing migration units can also use the Pillage Unit ability when in foreign-owned cities. This will give the city a 5-year penalty to population growth and commerce, and will give direct additions of power based on the number of pops living in the city and its current civilization level. A city cannot be pillaged again as long as the penalty is run out. So you migrate to Rome, you pillage Rome. Nice, I like it. Interesting that there are no Roman armies here to stop this pillaging nonsense. Anyway, moving on to Germania. Screenshot showing where the Germanic cultures can be found currently. So these are the Germanic cultures here. These are the Gallic, I don't know, cultures. Although, it is a culture map mode. I wonder, I didn't see this culture before. Then this blue is Greek, or Greco, or whatever they want to call it. Picts and Hibernians. Ah, now you can see the different cultures in the British Isles. This dev diary was made after the start of the dev clash, where this was all Pict. So that was why the Dumnonians managed to take all of it, and now they are Dumnonian culture. Interesting. Okay, let's go. With that, we move on to one part of the map where this mechanic is very readily available. In our start of 450 AUC, all countries in northern Germania are tribal chiefdoms, and they all start at -50 centralization or less, meaning that migration is not just available, but is also quite efficient. From a historical standpoint, Germania in that time was one of the most poorly documented places we have on the map. While larger cultures and trends have been observed, and while we know a fair bit about what was going on later in time, we cannot know for sure any details at the start. For this reason, the region is among the more speculative included in the game. For that matter, deciding what should start settled and owned by a country and what should be populated but unclaimed at our start is not easy. We've arrived at what we hope is a balance that will best facilitate a historical feel to the area, one where the abilities you have in the game to migrate and colonize can be of good use, while still allowing the more noteworthy tribal entities that existed to be playable. Like in tribal regions elsewhere, the Germanic tribes will have access to formidable countries such as Swabia or Saxonia. I thought Saxonia was a starting nation. I could have sworn it was. I guess maybe not then. So what did Johann start as in the Dev Clash then, if not Saxonia? I could have sworn he started as that. Part of northern Germania that is closest to Gaul, often called Jastorf cultural area. In 450 AUC, this region is inhabited by a wide variety of tribal states. Some will later be found in far from these locations, while others will remain familiar to this setting. Had the writings of the explorer Pythus of Massilia survived, we might have known more, but all we can say with certainty is the start of the game, this dynamic region with great variety of outcomes. So we have the starting countries of Frisia, Agrivaria, Cheruscia, Chausia, Fossia, Marcomannia. I've heard of these guys before. Strong tribal chiefdom that would in time migrate south to modern Bohemia. Marcomannia, I've heard of them. Langobards, I've heard of them as well. Rudigna, Anglia, the Angles, they were the ones that gave the name England to this area. Aviones, Eudocians, the Teutonians. I want to play as the Teutonians. I know it's got nothing to do with Teutonic, or it might do actually. Maybe, I don't know. And the Cimbrians. We have the Baltic Germanians. Yeah, I'm very... What nation did Johann start as? I'm not sure. Moving east along the Baltic, we reach the eastern land of the Jastorf area, as well as a number of other cultures, into one of the parts of Germania that is furthest away from the Mediterranean. Hence little is actually known about local politics. Like the Germanic region to its west, this is a region divided under a variety of tribes, some which would carry the embryo to later more famous groups, such as the Vandals, Goths, or Suebi. This region is remarkable for its high availability of amber, that would also later spread. Nice. Oh, there's the Gothonia. I always thought that the Goths came from Gothland or Gotland, like where the Gothonians are here. Maybe they were even further back in time, and then they've moved down south. Also, Burgundia. I wonder if they ended up being the Burgundians. Maybe. I do know that the Angles here are the ones that inhabited Britain. Although I also don't see any Jutes. I don't see any... well, I mean, Saxonia is a formable, so maybe the Jutland would be as well. I mean, this entire peninsula is Jutland, so maybe these guys can form Jutland, maybe? I don't know. So we have Rhynia, Semnonia, Rugia, Lugia, Limovia, Bastarnia, Gothonia, Scythia, and Aestuia. Yeah, there we go. Alright, well, that's very interesting stuff about the tribes. Let's move on to families again. Talking about families, what they are and how they can help or harm your country. We'll also be looking at the map of Scandinavia, a region that will eventually be known for its great output of grand strategy games. Indeed, indeed. In Imperator, countries are the main actors, while characters in many ways present both the means to and the difficulties in achieving national ambitions. In history, however, and in this era in particular, the family was also a very important political unit. And imperator families will look after the interests of their members, and sometimes some families will end up very involved in the future of your country. All important characters in a country will belong to one of a limited number of families, each which has certain expectations on the state. Failing to deliver on these expectations will make them less loyal. In some instances, you'll be able to interact with the loyalty of the members of one family at once, rather than with each character one at a time. For instance, a marriage between your ruler or his heir in a monarchy will result in an increased loyalty for all family members towards the state. Providing a member of a family a job will earn you loyalty with all of his kin, while confiscating the property of a person will have a negative effect on the loyalty of all his family members. I wonder how much of an increase that loyalty will be, because in history there's multiple examples where marriages between two families are what turned hostilities, like they're at war with each other, they end the war, and to prevent a new war they have a marriage happen, and then the marriage is what turns them from warring states into allied states. So I wonder, is there going to be a lot of loyalty for that, or marginal? Remains to be seen. Acquiring new families. As your country expands, it might end up annexing other countries. It might. Might. Every time you do this, you'll be given a choice on how to deal with the local families in power. The conquering country can choose to receive up to 4 of the powerful families in the conquered country. Each foreign family you accept will cost you some ruler popularity, while making a public display of them can earn you some popularity with the masses. You can also spare the foreign families and allow them to flee to other countries for small aggressive expansion reduction. Refugees and captives may also at times arrive in a country, but will then be considered non-citizens and not belong to any of the important families. Granting citizenship to such foreigners will create a new family for them. Okay, interesting stuff. Grant citizenship status to Philaterus Attalid. When a foreign character arrives in your country due to annexation, being captured and then out of prison, as a refugee from war or any other means, this character will be unable to be employed by the state. In order for this character to gain the right to work as a salaried member of the state, you will need to grant them citizenship. This will also establish their family in your country. Each family has a prestige value, which all of its members contribute. Family prestige signifies how important a family is, and it grows mainly from the deeds, offices, and incomes of its members. While prestige has a few direct effects, it is a quick way to see how influential a family has been over the course of a game, and how important it is compared to other families in your country. Really hope we get to create a family. Like, I want to create the Lamberts, right? That would be pretty cool. And see the Lamberts rule and, you know, expand and grow and all that kind of stuff. That would be kind of awesome. Each family in a country has a head. This is one of the older and more distinguished members who consider themselves a spokesperson for the entire group. Apart from being the primary point of interaction with the family for the player, the head of the family will also have higher prominence and a chance of attracting loyal troops. Scorned and outraged families. As mentioned, families also have expectations on you. Each family in the realm expects to have a certain amount of state wages go to them. If at any time any important family receives less than 2% of the country's income in wages, they'll be considered a scorned family. 2%? I feel like that's gonna get expensive real quick, right? You have 10 families, that 10 families seems pretty reasonable. That's 20% of your income to keep them all happy, at least. Because you're obviously not gonna have everybody exactly on 2%. It's gonna get real expensive. The only way to avoid this demand is if a family does not have enough people that could hold salaried positions. A scorned family will see all its members get a ticking loyalty modifier, reducing their loyalty to the state over time, until you fulfill their needs. This is in itself a problem, but as long as the family isn't very influential and is without any important positions, it may be tolerable. Alright, lovely. Family that stays scorned long enough and is led by a disloyal head of family will sometimes raise their own army. This army will be loyal to the head of the family and may contribute to a civil war breaking out. If the head of a family stops being disloyal, i.e. gets it above 33, the army will go away. Now move on to Scandinavia. In the section on Germania, I noted how hard it is to be able to say anything for certain about exactly what things were like in that time period. It's perhaps even more true for Scandinavia. Once again, the lost works of Pythias would have perhaps been of help. He supposedly travelled this far and described a land of Thule, but as they are lost to us, we have to go on much later writers. As is often the case though, lacking documentation does not mean that nothing was there. There is no lack of later authors that refer back to Scandinavia's past. Nonetheless, our setup here is by necessity a bit speculative and makes liberal use of extrapolation from later testimony. Alright. Scandinavia is in some ways like the peninsula we all know and love. It's densely forested and can often have quite harsh winters. Compared to most regions, it's also quite sparsely populated and politically divided. All states that exist here are tribal chiefdoms with very low starting centralization levels, making the area ideal for starting a tribal migration to greener pastures. Migrate is also what many of the tribes we have placed here historically did, sometimes across the Baltic Sea, sometimes far further. Yeah, like the Goths being the ones that, burned Rome to the ground. The entire region will be very dynamic. There's nothing specifically to say that one of these tribes will triumph over the other, or that any specific one should migrate away. Most of these countries look deceptively extensive on a map, whereas very few pops actually live here, and all cities have very low civilization levels. I'm very curious as to how the AI will handle migrations. Like, will we see entire countries up routes and move south? Like, that's going to be very interesting to see. I'm very curious. So the starting countries: Herulia, Burgundia, Dania, Luonia, Guthonia, Suonia, Raumatia, Grania, and Aethelrugia. Interesting stuff. Thought to be the ancestor of the later Swedes, the Suonis control land around Lake Mälaren, which is in central Sweden, and then Guthonia, known as the Eastern Geats, thought to be some of the ancestors of the later Goths. Burgundians, presumed to later move south into the sphere of the Roman Empire. Maybe these are the guys that went down and created Burgundy. Maybe, who knows? And then Dania, I assume, is turning into Danes? I don't know. We'll see. Anyway, moving on. One more dev diary and we're done. Right, so we're talking about the alliance changes. I did mention this briefly in a previous dev diary after someone asked me about it in the comments, but we can go over it now in a bit more depth. As we described in previous dev diaries, calling allies to arms in Imperator has for a long time transferred the war leadership to a stronger party. There are a few different reasons for this, most importantly being able to drag in a major power to use them offensively, as a small country is not necessarily realistic or balanced. There are risks with going to war. Even if you win, that the greater country opens themselves up to, such as the risk of occupation and enslavement of its population. Problematically, however, the transfer of war leadership often resulted in situations that were hard to predict or read. Small conflicts would frequently spiral into huge ones, with the biggest empires getting involved in situations where they would have little to gain from doing so, while calling in all their allies. The old system for transferring war leadership has therefore now been scrapped, with a number of changes to how alliances work introduced instead. Most prominently, an alliance is now a contract of military cooperation between equals, whereas other types of treaties will be used for situations where greater power defends a lesser one. Okay, so pretty much everything that I said in the previous video is now irrelevant and wrong, alright? So, war leadership will now only transfer to an overlord when a subject is attacked, or from a guaranteed country when its strongest, most populous protector is called. Okay, so it can still transfer, but only with guarantees, and I mean the overlord stuff, that's natural. But from guarantees it will, which is interesting. Once war leadership has transferred, the new war leader can call in their subjects and allies. While allies will still help out in wars, they will never take over leadership of the war from you. Okay. So allies now no longer do that, they used to. Fair enough. Alliances can now only exist between countries of the same rank, and great powers can never have any allies at all. Instead, they will have to defend themselves and rely on guarantees or subject relationships to protect others. That's very interesting. That is incredibly interesting. That is going to change the dynamic of gameplay very much. I can't remember if I actually said this in a video or in the comments section, but I was asked if I like this, and I've got to say that obviously I'm going to need to get my hands on it and see how it plays. But yes, a tentative, speculative yes, I do like the idea of this. Frequently in multiplayer games especially, you get one guy who has managed to get enough opinion with France to get the alliance with him. And that alliance lasts for a very long time. Hell, it's what I did in the Beyond Typhus campaign. I allied France and I ended up allying the Ottomans at one point. And while they weren't especially useful for defense or offense, it was a bit of a dissuasion from being attacked. This way, also you frequently saw it when you were when you were playing single player. You're going up to attack this one guy that you really don't like, and then, oh, suddenly he's allied France or he's allied Austria. Going back to the Beyond Typhus campaign, how many times was I annoyed at Savoy for allying with Austria? Austria would certainly not be in the same rank as Savoy in that campaign. So, yeah, no, I think this is going to make things a lot more equal, a lot more interesting. There's going to be a lot more... I think it's going to encourage warfare, because countries aren't going to be prevented from attacking another purely because that other country is allied to big, huge, scary blob to the left, right? The wars are going to be more equal, and therefore the AI is going to feel more confident in declaring them. Therefore, there's going to be more wars, and more wars equals more fun and a more interesting world to play in. So, for now, I am actually very much in favor of this, and I truly hope that it works as well as they hope it does. So, with that out of the way, let's continue on. When your country changes rank, throw a carry... Let's just start that sentence again, because that was a bit of a clusterfuck. When your country changes rank through acquiring more cities, all existing alliances will be transformed into guarantees. There will also be a confirmation dialogue if demanding land in peace would result in a rank change. That's okay. Alliances take a Diplo slot, so do guarantees, so... Yeah, no, it makes sense. I like it. It's good. Guarantee is now no longer just a casus belli, but will instead lead to a call to arms. Okay, so they've changed that. That's good. That's good. When the guaranteed country is attacked, it now also costs 1 Diplo relation slot. Yeah, makes sense. With the excuse me, sorry. With these changes, we hope to better reflect the drastically different types of relationships states could be in during this era, where power may well act to defend weaker states, but never as an equal. Rome itself was a good example of this type of diplomacy, with the possibility of more advanced cooperation between powers of comparable strength. Yeah, you very rarely hear of, like, just alliances as we know them from the games. So, yeah, no, I'm in favor. I'm in favor. Along with these changes to alliances, we've changed the country rank definitions a bit. In particular, we've increased the number of cities needed to be a great power, and therefore without allies, significantly, meaning there are no longer any great powers at the start of the game. You know what I like most about this? Consider multiplayer. Eventually, everyone in multiplayer, if they haven't been murdered, right, is gonna be a great power. Those great powers can't hug box together. So late game Imperator is gonna be phenomenal because there's no hug boxes. This is an anti-hug box mechanic. That's fantastic. That is really, really good. Alright, and now it looks like there's more ranks as well, because beforehand there were only 4. So now we've got Migrant Horde, City State, Local Power, Regional Power, Major Power, Great Power. Oh wait, no, Migrant Horde, no cities. It's not really a rank as such. And City State, probably not either. But yeah, 500 or more cities. Doable, it's doable. And now we look at India. It's time to visit the subcontinent of India, separated from Persia and the Middle East by a mountain range and deserts. It's also as far east as the map will go for now. It extends all the way to the Arakanese Mountains and the natural border between India and Burma. Yeah, makes sense. Where was I at? Here we go. India sticks out compared to all the other regions we've been through in a number of ways. It's a region of vast fertile plains, high mountain ranges and deep jungles, a terrain type very rarely found outside of India. India is also home to a very large part of the world population, even in 304 BC, and the countries here have generally far larger resources than one might expect from their size. Politically, India has, in history, often been as diverse as Europe, with a number of different states fighting for hegemony, but at times it's also been united under great empires. Alexander the Great in his day invaded even this region and conquered most of the Indus Valley, leaving a number of Greek satraps and Greek settlements behind. In 304, this subcontinent has, however, just watched the rise of the Maurya Empire under Chandragupta Maurya, who have risen from relative obscurity in the southern Indus Valley to defeating both the Nanda Empire and the remaining Greek satraps in India. Religiously, India at the start of our game is dominantly Hindu, but with Jainism and Buddhism both on the rise. Buddhism especially would come to spread from India in all directions, eventually becoming a major world religion. And as I said in a previous Dev Diary, Buddhism was very much influenced by the Greeks in Bactria. In the last few diaries, I've noted there are numerous problems in finding sources and references for history of this era. India is far more well known than Germania or Scandinavia at our start, especially the part that was relevant to the Mauryas or the Greeks and their emissaries, some of who visited the Maurya Empire in modern Bihar. India is also a very big place, however, and there are still many parts of it where we have had to extrapolate later day information. So, oh yeah, we've got now Indian military traditions. So we've got the Maurya path, the coastal path, and the noble path. So archer, offensive, war elephants, light infantry. A terrain bonus for war elephants specifically. Interesting. Archer discipline, heavy infantry in terrain. Very nice, very nice. So here in the coastal path, galleys, archers, terrain, raid ports ability. Morale of armies, fort defense, cost of those, marine discipline, interesting stuff. Then the noble path's got chariot defense, war elephant discipline, archer defense, allows Padma Vyuha tactic. Interesting. Okay, we'll have to see what that one is. Chariot discipline, war elephant cost, merc maintenance, and war elephant morale. The noble path seems very strong, but I really like the idea of raiding ports. Like that seems really, really strong. So, yeah, we're gonna have to see. We're gonna have to see. Northern India looks fucking beautiful. The Indus Valley looks fucking beautiful. The Western Coast, the Maru Desert and the Avanti region. Guess what? It looks fucking beautiful. The Gangetic Plain? No, that looks fucking beautiful too. God, no, just seriously now. The map, the pictures, oh god, it looks so good. This is clearly the best looking map that they have ever released. In any of their games, there's nothing that comes close to this. This is phenomenal. God, I'm so looking forward to this game so much. I want this now. Alright, sorry, let's get back into this. So, Bengal. Northern India is dominated by the Indo-Gangetic Plain, much like the Nile Delta. This is a very densely populated and fertile part of the world. Unlike the Nile Delta, however, is far greater in size. The plain itself has been the heartland of a number of empires throughout history, and at our start is dominated by the newly formed Maurya Empire, which has just recently established itself in Paliputra in northeastern India. The Indus region in the far west has for a short period of time been under Greek rule, after having been conquered by Alexander the Great and then handed over to a number of successive Greek satraps. It is now theoretically part of the Seleucid Empire, but in practice these satrapies are under Mauryan control. The Seleucid and Mauryan empires have been in continuous conflict for a number of years now, ever since Seleucus and his son Antiochus moved east to secure Bactria and eastern Persian satrapies. At our game start, the Seleucid-Mauryan conflict is about to end, with the Seleucids handing over control over large parts of the eastern part of their empire in return for a truce with the Indian conquerors and a great number of war elephants to use in their wars with the other Greek successors. I really hope that's a part of it, like, you get the elephants. That'd be awesome. So we have Maurya, Atavia, Kamarupa, Kalinga, Karusa, Indravana, Boya, and the Rathika. And in southern India, which also looks fucking beautiful. Also, there is the strait here is literally land. Like this is a literal land bridge, which is very interesting. We have here as well, central India. While most states in the south are not as well documented as northern India, the Indian Ocean ports here would become known to Roman and Greek traders. This region is also home to some of the oldest dynasties in the history of India, such as the Pandyas, Cholas, and Cheras. Wouldn't have a clue any of those are, but interesting. Especially the island of Sri Lanka and the Tamil country in the far southwest are very populous regions, however, and while not as strong as the Maurya Empire in the north, they are owned by powers with potential to grow their influence in 304. We have the countries of Ashmaka, Pitnika, Kuntala, Andhra being a country that also exists in EU4, Mahisha, Alupa, Satyaputa, Chera I don't know, Chola, Pandya, and Anuradhapura. Lovely. And that brings us to the end of the dev diary. Let's just open this map because it looks beautiful. And yeah, so there is going to be a new dev diary tomorrow that is not out at the time of me recording this. So you will have something to look forward to tomorrow if you are looking forward to these videos. I don't know. How popular are these? Are you enjoying it? Let me know in the comments. But yeah, I must say, just to bring it back a little bit, I'm very glad that I started doing these again. The reason I stopped was because I kind of got a little bit jaded. Well, not jaded, but tired, I guess. I lost my hype for Imperator, but starting with the dev clash, and then going back to rewatch the other streams where they're playing as Egypt and Saxonia and Rome, and now they're going to be playing soon as Sparta. That should be starting pretty soon. It really got my hype going again, and now going through these dev diaries it's been good. And I've got to say, compared to when I first started these dev diaries, yeah, I'm a lot more hyped now than I was then. So that's good. That's good. I am very much looking forward to this game. Like, a lot. I think this is definitely going to be their best game on release. Right? So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. So I want to thank you as well all very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. I hope you've enjoyed these dev diary videos that I've been doing. Look forward to the next one tomorrow, and I will see you then. Bye-bye for now.